have Ms. Lindsay Shepherd, welcome. Mr. John Robson, welcome. And Mr. Mark Stein, welcome. Each of the witnesses will speak in turn. Ms. Shepherd, you're on the list first. We're going to go in the order of the agenda. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Honorable members, thank you for the invitation to appear today. Earlier this year, I received a 7-day suspension from the social media website Twitter for violating their rules against hateful conduct. According to the Twitter rules, you may not promote violence against, threaten, or harass other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. So what was my tweet that supposedly promoted violence, threatened, or harassed someone? Well, my tweet referenced an individual that I cannot name here today due to a publication ban in this country. This individual can only be referred to as JY. JY is an individual that has taken 14 female estheticians to the BC Human Rights Tribunal because they declined to perform waxing services on his male genitalia. There are also screenshots of Facebook messages between JY and others, where it appears he makes very predatory comments about wanting to help 10 to 12-year-old girls with their tampons in bathroom stalls. In the tweet that got me suspended, I referred to JY as a guy who creeps on young girls and vulnerable working women in the Vancouver area. And I posted some of the Facebook messages he has written about his plans to approach young girls in the female washrooms. Why was it deemed hateful conduct for me to write this tweet? Because JY purports to be a male-to-female transgender person. And so by alerting people to his troubling conduct, I got kicked off Twitter for 7 days because what I wrote was seen as a transgression against his gender identity. Prominent Canadian feminist Meghan Murphy was permanently banned from Twitter for misgendering the same individual, JY, that I have just spoken about, and for tweeting, "Men aren't women, though." These tweets also fell under Twitter's hateful conduct policy. Murphy is now suing Twitter because as a journalist, her livelihood is largely dependent on her online presence, and she is being denied an online presence and being denied the ability to participate in the public square, as online spaces are today's public square. I am concerned about the potential return of legislation such as Section 13 of the Canadian Human Rights Act, because what that legislation does is punish Canadians who, in exercising their right to peaceful free expression, might offend a member of a protected marginalized group. If someone with a marginalized identity experiences commentary they find offensive, they can claim the offense is an attack on their identity rather than being legitimate expression. Human rights tribunals become the tools by which those who speak their mind peacefully and nonviolently are silenced. Many other witnesses before this committee have discussed the need for a definition of hate, and many call for a need to draw the line between free speech and hate speech. As a graduate student at Wilfrid Laurier University in 2017 and 2018, I woke up to how my peers and academic superiors understand hate. When the word got out that I had played an excerpt from TV Ontario's The Agenda with Steve Paikin in the classroom that I was a teaching assistant for, an excerpt that featured psychologist Dr. Jordan Peterson discussing Bill C-16, compelled speech, and gender pronouns, a PhD student at my university said at a rally that I had played hate speech in the classroom and had violated the spirit of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Likewise, a professor at George Brown College named Dr. Griffin Epstein asserted in a letter to the Toronto Star that I had played, quote, hate speech in the classroom, end quote. And these are just two examples. Recently, Facebook has taken to banning white nationalists from their platform. If you poke around online, tons of people call me a white nationalist and a white supremacist because I have offered criticisms of the practice of Indigenous land acknowledgements and have cited the statistically backed up fact that white Canadians are becoming a minority in Canada. An instructor at Wilfrid Laurier University, Dr. Christopher Stewart-Taylor, used class time in his anthropology class to tell his students that I have neo-Nazi, white supremacist ideologies, which he followed by saying, "I shouldn't have said that, forget I said anything." So I don't have a Facebook account, But if I did, would they ban me? How many people does it take to smear you as a white nationalist or white supremacist before you get banned from certain online spaces? This committee has noted that underlying their study on online hate is a finding by Statistics Canada that reported a 47% increase in police-reported hate crimes between 2016 and 2017. However, this increase is principally from non-violent crimes. As the Statistics Canada website reads, police-reported hate crime in Canada rose sharply in 2017, up 47% over the previous year, and largely the result of an increase in hate-related property crimes, such as graffiti and vandalism. Now, perhaps you caught this story in the news recently. A couple of months ago, at Laurentian University in Sudbury, a student found some candy arranged in the shape of a swastika on a cafeteria table. This swastika-shaped candy arrangement is being investigated as an incident of hatred and intimidation by the university. However, I do not think that one single isolated incident of candy arranged in a swastika is enough evidence to indicate that anyone is trying to incite hatred, target, or intimidate. This is an example of how the bar for what constitutes hate is too low. I have had so many encounters with the hypersensitivity around what constitutes hate that I know bringing back Section 13 of the Canadian Human Rights Act would be a mistake. It would cast too wide of a net, and extremists who are already intent on causing real-world violence will go to the deeper and darker web to communicate, whilst individuals who shouldn't be caught up in online hate legislation will inevitably get caught up in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shepherd. Thank you very much. Mr. Fraser?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be sharing my time with Mr. Erskine Smith. Ms. Shepherd, I just want to discuss with you a couple of things that you mentioned in your presentation and also some activities that you've undertaken. One thing that I think is missing sometimes when we talk about free speech, it sometimes gets confused with consequence-free speech, meaning that people have to be responsible for what they do say. And I take it, I agree obviously with the point that free speech in Canada is a protected right, that it obviously is extremely important and that we cherish it, but that it is subject to reasonable limits in our charter. Consequence-free speech is something that has to be borne in mind when responsible individuals are engaging in civil society. I want to talk for a minute about a recent YouTube interview that you did with Mr. Gary Pay, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I'm not familiar with him. But the topic of population replacement came on, and I know you talked a bit in your presentation about whites becoming a minority. Now, this YouTube channel hosts white supremacists quite often, neo-Nazis like Richard Spencer, former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke has appeared on that program, and you appeared on it recently talking about population replacement. After you finished that statement, Mr. Gary Pay then started talking about white genocide and how that when whites are in the minority, like in South Africa and in Haiti, the white genocide occurs. And you said nothing in rebuttal to that. I mean, don't you think that free speech comes with a responsibility, especially when you're confronted with inflammatory and insightful rhetoric?
I don't think I'm here to defend my personal track record. In fact, at a previous hearing, Naseem Mithuani, one of the witnesses, was asked about her personal activities, and it deemed that that wasn't appropriate. So I'm not here to defend my personal activities. Because
what we're here to talk about today is online hate. This was a video interview that was online on a YouTube channel known for espousing white supremacist, white nationalist views that you appeared on just last month. So are you not willing to comment on whether or not you believe that that interview constituted online hate in a study on online hatred?
It did not constitute online hate. It was not hate speech.
Have you spoken to any member of Parliament before today about your appearance here at this committee?
No.
Okay, I'll give my time to Mr. Erskine Smith.
Thanks very much. Eid Mubarak, everyone. There are thousands of peaceful, loving, and welcoming Muslims in my riding right now. I'm normally in Dentonia Park with them. I'm here with you instead. And
Mr. Sassi is next. Mr. Sassi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, if I could start off with Ms. Shepherd. Ms. Shepherd, on March 22nd, you were published in Maclean's. There is a quote attributed to you, and I suspect you had said, appearing on a neo-Nazi podcast and reciting slogans associated with Nazism is distasteful, destructive to healthy race relations, and completely deserving of harsh criticism. Do you still stand by that?
Absolutely, yeah, that was March 22nd, 2018.
Okay. Would you agree that racism can be destructive to healthy race relations and deserves to be criticized and condemned?
Sure.
And you would say the same thing about sexism and homophobia. They're destructive to the public order and they should be condemned?
Well, then I have to go into how are you defining those things, but as a general, just as the question as it is, yes.
Yes, so you agree that all of these isms can be troubling to the public order?
Sure.
And should be condemned?
Sure.
Okay, so do you think that public figures, Canadian public figures, have a responsibility to condemn hate speech?
No.
No, you think it's perfectly fine. So you agree it's destructive, but you don't think it should be condemned?
I don't think people have a responsibility to condemn.
You don't think people have a responsibility to condemn? But I think you said here they are deserving of harsh criticism.
That doesn't mean people have to be assigned a responsibility.
No, but you do agree that these terrible things are deserving of harsh criticism.
Sure.
So why do you think that our public figures should be spared?
I guess I just don't want to go into a situation where it's you have to speak out on every single little thing that happened, and if you're
Not
silent,
little
you
things,
are
the
a
big
culprit.
things. Do you think the big things they should criticize?
Well, then we have to go into what's the difference between a little thing and a big thing,
Sure,
and see how
but the
these
big
things
things
go
you
in
would
circles,
agree,
right?
with the notion that they should be condemned.
Sorry?
But the big things, as you put it, you think should be condemned.
Yes, but then the problem is the operational definitions.
Okay. Thank you for that.